thank you very much, Juan Molina, for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Woke up a little earlier today than expected, but I guess that was pretty good for the podcast. You're not getting super tired, me.
Cool, man. I'm glad that you're here. We've been wanting to do this for years. The first podcast I ever recorded was in 2012 in your room.
I remember.
Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
It was.
I don't even remember what we were trying to do or if we came up with a name or what.
I don't think we had a name or anything. I think we just wanted to talk about the master.
Yeah, it was just an excuse to talk about the master, for sure.
And I remember that very well. And yeah, no, when you and Dave had Back Beyond going on, I really wanted to be a guest because I thought you two were really funny. So I'm glad you brought the podcast back. So I can be.
I have to. It's really like it's one of the only things I've ever made that I got positive feedback with. Everything that I make, people are like, eh. But with a podcast, people really seem to like it. So maybe it's something I'm good at. I don't know. But I really enjoyed doing Back Beyond with Dave. It was fun. I wish we kind of, I feel like we're like a TV series that got canceled in a way. Like we didn't get a finale. We didn't have a chance to wrap it up like the George Lopez show style. But it was fun doing it. So I don't think Dave listens to these. But if you are listening to this, let's do one more Back Beyond and end it together the way we started it.
The cast reunion special would be good.
That would be cool, man. But it's good to hear your voice. We rarely get to talk, and just so the listeners kind of have some insight, JR and I became friends in 2012. We both come from relatively the same hometown, the Rio Grande Valley. We both moved to Austin, and movies kind of brought us together. So I was a filmmaker, he was a filmmaker, so we had a lot in common from the get. But JR has since moved to greener pastures in New York City, which is pretty amazing. And I'm still here in Austin, but we try to catch up any chance we get, man. So I'm glad you're able to come on the show and we can finally have a discussion about some nerd shit.
Yeah, I hear that. No, but to put a little bit more background, I always found our friendship pretty funny because I met you online when you were trying to promote Her Doppelganger on the film forums or whatever they were called. And and I remember you moved to Austin, and I was pretty excited to meet you. And we met, and then that was probably like the only time we were in the same like place for like an extended amount of period. So we would hang out quite a bit. Because the second time you moved to Austin, I just felt like you were busy 24/7 because you were working that job, and then you were also always on the bus. It seemed like, so you were always kind of busy. And I was working Domino's at the time too, so. Shows you how much things can change, like in a relatively small time. Where when we were younger, I think we had like nothing but free time, and then when we were older, I think it was much harder for us to hang out if it wasn't like WrestleMania or something.
Yeah, that's part of life, you know. I've been thinking about that too, in terms of when I was younger. I was listening to Joe Rogan and Theo Von just the other day, and Theo Von was talking about. Man, he really missed the good old days when he was young, dumb, and full of cum. And I don't really put my youth on a pedestal, man. Like I couldn't wait to be taken seriously and to have the responsibilities that I have right now. And I look at the free time that I had back in the day, and I do more with 1 hour being a busy dude with being a father and all that stuff than I did with 24 hours being a single dude in an apartment in Austin. So. But I know what you mean, man. We used to definitely hang out more. We used to go to the movies. I remember one of the best cinematic experiences I've had was watching Life of Pi, and I saw it with you, and it was an amazing experience, and I needed it. I definitely needed it. But yeah, man, those were the good old days, and now we're off, being adults, I guess. I'm 30 years old, and how many birthdays have you had?
26, which still feels a little surreal, but it's pretty cool. I'm in my late 20s now, I guess, sort of. Not really, but kind of.
I became a father at 26. Oh, so dang. I will say, like, I feel like 25 to 30 goes by a lot faster than 21 to 25. So enjoy it, man. Whatever it is, whatever spots you want to hit, man. I mean, hit them while you can, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so what's new with you? Have you seen any recent movies or anything like that? I always see you on Instagram. Talk about the movies.
No, well, one thing I did want to say is I feel like there's a perception and obviously I perpetuate it. But I think the internet makes things way louder than they certainly appear to be. And there's a perception that like I'm very, very busy all the time. And I don't know if it's an excuse for other people, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but other people, other friends, and even family tell me like, well, Knives, you look so busy, so I don't want to call you, and I blah 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 blah. And it's like, I don't think anybody's ever that busy. You know what I mean? And I always have time for friends and family. Like that's the whole point of life, So I always hear that quite a bit. And just a cousin of mine, yesterday was her birthday, and she was like, "Well, I never want to call you because you just seem so busy." And it's like, man, I think the internet makes things look more chaotic than they really are. Like, not really much has changed, like for most humans, I think. But having said that, as far as movies, I don't go to the movies too often. Like, it takes a lot for me to want to go out and see something. I used to be able to just watch everything. Like, I think in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I saw everything. I saw all the movies, old and new. Like, I was caught up on the old stuff. I was watching new stuff as it was coming out. And now and it sucks because I think this is ignorant on my part, but like with music, I want to know what's going on. Like, I care about the quote unquote trends or whatever it is that's happening with music. I want to be in the know when it comes to music. And I'm always trying to broaden my horizons with that. With movies, I got about 50 filmmakers that I love, and I pretty much am just religiously devoted to them. Like, if David Lynch comes out with something new, or a Steve McQueen, or a Tarantino, or somebody like that, or even a Steven Spielberg, like, I'm going to watch it. But all this new stuff, like, I do have to manage my time wisely. Like, I can't take chances. Like, I'm not going to watch Venom. It's not important to me. And I'm not going to watch it because I want to be a part of the conversation. Like, I don't care enough about that either. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the money. And quite frankly, like, movies are, I love film, but movies are a very indulgent medium. And it's very selfish to give your undivided attention to a film, and so it takes a lot for me to want to do that. Last year I maybe went to the movies 10, 15 times, which is more than the average person, but nothing compared to most cinephiles. So I stay informed with the conversation. I know what's going on, but it's kind of like it's like I watch the ESPN highlights. Like, I might not have a football team per se. I might not watch every game from my team, but I know what the score is. I know what the spread is. I know what everybody's doing. I pay attention to the college scene, which is like the independent scene of filmmaking. Like, I have my fingers on the pulse. Like, I'm always going to be like that. But there's a lot of movies, like, I just found out that Paul Schrader did First Reformed. And that's interesting to me. I want to watch that. I haven't seen a trailer about it. I don't know jack shit about it. I'm interested because I think he's one of the guys, but it just never really came into my bubble, So that's something I did want to talk about. Really, is that idea? Is that part of filmmaking? Like, the kind of the consumption of it? Like, it's really fascinating to me. But to answer your question, like, as far as seeing anything new, I don't know, man. Like, I've been watching a lot of serialized television because that's another thing. Like, in my household, we all share the television, so it's Fiona's turn, it's Aiden's turn, it's Claire's turn, and it's my turn. And when I want to watch something, like, if it's too rated R, I can't watch it, right? So I live right next to a dollar theater, and I try to sneak out when I can, and I try to sneak out when I can and watch something that, like, last time we talked, we mentioned Damien Chazelle's First Man. Yeah. And I don't know I think it came and went at the dollar movies, but little things that I missed that I want to snipe and watch, I wait for them to come there to that theater, and I'll watch them. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I was just going to ask, have you shown Aiden Kill Bill? Just because you were talking about rated R movies.
Before I met him, he had already seen it. So that's, okay. Yeah, he was pretty familiar with it, but we have watched it recently.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I even watched it semi-recently with my mom as well, which was fun.
It's funny thinking about, like, rated R, because I think me and you were kind of similar, where we watched rated R movies before we probably should have. Like I think I saw South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Same.
I think I saw RoboCop a little too young, and that movie did scare the crap out of me. I feel
Hmm.
like I'm still scarred from that shootout scene that very early on in that movie. But
Hmm.
it was a good movie though. So
Like we don't have like a you can't watch this, you can't watch that when it comes to my house. Like I don't care if it's a language thing, if it's a violence thing, but it's really more about like something that's inappropriate. Like it's the context of things. Like I can't even watch the Eric Andre show at my house because
uh,
it's just too much for people. It's too extreme. But I can watch Game of Thrones and I can see someone's like face smashed in and their teeth on the floor. You know what I mean? So it's kind of confusing to me. Like I don't know why that's more acceptable than like an Eric Andre, but as far as films, man, like I've been wanting to watch The Favorite, and I've been wanting to catch up on all kinds of things. I never even saw that second Lanthimos movie. What was it called?
Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Yeah, I never even saw that. So there's a lot of stuff I want to catch up on, but mostly if it's to stay in the loop and be a part of the conversation, I don't really have a use for it, to be honest. Like when I first got into films, I like hardcore. It was like as a student, so I saw Orson Welles, and I saw a bunch of John Ford movies, and I saw Hitchcock stuff, and I was really trying to understand the craft and the form and like why people make the decisions that they make, and I had a very analytical mind when it came to that, and I kind of feel like I collected a lot of data. I kind of feel
Yeah,
pretty full when it comes to that, enough to go out there and make movies, which is kind of the point. I think there will be a time, maybe in my 50s, where I become like a guy who reads a lot of books and gets to watch a lot of movies, and maybe then I'll enjoy my time. I don't know if I want to spend my time doing that, but I really feel like I gave myself like a decade and a half to cinephilia, and I don't know what more it wants from me.
yeah.
What more
No,
does
I
it
mean,
want from me?
I'm in total
I fed the
agreement with
beast
you.
for a very long time.
Yeah, because I watch a considerable amount more than movies of you, but I totally agree where you're coming from that you kind of have to watch movies for the right reasons now. So I think I saw this is gonna sound crazy, but I think I saw like over 100 movies in theaters. But I would say like only a tenth of that were new movies, and it's not so
Mm.
much that I prefer watching the older stuff. It's just none of the new stuff is kind of interesting to me. So like at least with the older films, I can kind of think what was
But
the
a,
director
I'm,
trying to do,
but a lot
and
of
like
it
what.
is also older films that you're watching for the first time, right? So they're new
Yeah,
to you.
yeah, they're new to me, which is kind of the whole point, right? Like I haven't seen Vice, I haven't seen Roma, I haven't seen so many films that would have interested me like a few years ago, but for whatever reason, I think um, I kind of just lost interest in like keeping up with all that nonsense of like what's going to be a best picture, what's going to be like. I was like, you knew me, I was such a big mark for that stuff. And now I just kind of like I don't even like listing things anymore. Like my friends are always like, "Sure, you got to list your favorite movies you saw in December." I'm like, I don't know. I don't got to do nothing. I just like
Yeah,
watching the movies.
to
And
me,
what I
like
like about Netflix, and it's going to sound so bad, is that I can kind of barely give films my utmost attention. So like I saw Bird Box, and like I half watched that, but I think that's how Netflix kind of encourages you to watch movies. Maybe.
yeah, I saw Bird Box too. It was just one of those things that, like, the whole, Claire wanted to watch it, so I had to watch it. It's not something I would have reached out at. Like, I don't care about the conversation. I really don't. Once like hype kind of dies, well, then I'll go and I'll watch something. Because I just feel like because the internet is so loud, the volume is so loud, it can distort how I feel about a movie. I saw Blade Runner 2029 or whatever it's called, and I really feel like the praise kind of killed it for me. I couldn't really appreciate it for what it is. I saw it, I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was super special. I didn't think it was better than the original or anything like that. But maybe if I had seen it now, when no one's really talking about it, I think I would have liked it more. So all this subjectivity, like, there's such a demand for, well, what did you think about it? What is your opinion? Like, give me your hot take. And it's like, I don't want to perpetuate that the way everybody else is doing it. Like, it's just going to get lost in the noise. And also, like, I need time to process stuff. You know, I feel like right now the internet culture, film Twitter as it were, is kind of like people are weaponizing film the way that I think people feel about football teams, like, and jerseys and things like that, and I'm not interested in that. Like, that's not why I love movies. I like what I like. Like, I saw Pacific Rim 2 this last year, and I liked it. I was like, it's fine. It wasn't as good as the first one, but I didn't think it was dog shit. I've seen poorly made films. Like, I know what they really look like. I'm not going to give a hot take and be like, this is a dumpster fire, So that kind of cynicism to me is a big turnoff, But I'm interested to know what you saw that's notable, something that maybe didn't get the attention that it deserved, or something that you want to highlight or shed some light into, maybe I've seen or haven't seen.
That's an interesting question. Okay, so not to switch it on you, but have you heard of Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror one, the Black Mirror episode?
Is it an episode, or is it like a mini series thing?
I think it's an episode. I'm not too familiar with Black Mirror, but I kind of like the idea of choose your own adventure in a movie.
I
And
understand the gimmick.
hmm?
I'm familiar with the gimmick.
Yeah, so I finally watched that, and it was pretty unremarkable. But for some reason, I love the idea of like you choosing your own music as you're watching a movie, and I had that option very early on if you wanted to listen to new wave or pop music. And I was thinking, that's kind of interesting. They should like have that where if you want to see a movie with this type of editing or that type of editing, and I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, so like anyone who wants to see Bandersnatch, like I think that's the coolest part. It happens like 5 minutes into the movie. But going back to what's like remarkable, and I kind of feel like Clint Eastwood's 1517 to Paris was kind of underpraised, and that's interesting because Eastwood is such a great director. But like the reason why I want to highlight 1517 is because it stars the real people from the event. And I know some people are like, well, they're not actors, and you can tell. I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point, you dummy. Like, the movie
Hmm.
wouldn't work if it's not these real friends hanging out. Like, and I think Eastwood was being experimental, like at 87 years old. So I think that was one of my favorites of last year. And so if you haven't seen that one, I think that one's kind of cool, and it really does remind me of myself when I made films with my friends, and they were obviously not actors, but there was just such a like charm about using real people
Hmm.
versus actors, which is why I was a fan of mumblecore. Even if I don't like the content necessarily, I've always liked the idea of using on actors in films.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I agree. It just turned out that like most of the performances that I appreciated the most growing up turned out to be with non-actors. Like something like whatever Harmony Korine did in early his career, and Larry Clark, and who did 400 Blows? Was that Truffaut?
Yeah.
Like something like that. I was like, wow, if this is possible, then I think it's preferable. Like I really like working with non-actors personally as well. I think they're easier to direct
Oh,
because they're
100%.
they're like children in that they don't have the self-esteem issues that an actor could potentially have, because they know that they're being monitored, and sometimes like the act of feeling monitored can distort their performance. So I'm right there with you, man. Like I totally agree with that. So that's cool. I hadn't heard about that movie.
Oh yeah, you got to check it out. So it's about these war heroes that like stop the train hijacking, and you would think this movie would be this action film or this like pro army film, but it really is this like slice of life film of these guys getting rejected in life, and just kind of life is beating them down. And towards the end of the movie, they're like, "Hey, dudes, let's just like hang out again, like if we're kids, and go to Europe." And so they have this like time in Europe, and it's just kind of it's kind of beautiful. Like I don't know, it's such a bizarre film that I can't believe got a major release, and and of course it got like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. But I thought it was one of the more interesting films I've seen like in the last 5 years, especially by like a studio. And yeah, there's something beautiful about non-actors, and I would always say this: like whenever I worked with a non-actor, I never have to worry about a non-actor overperforming, and that's probably my number one issue with directing real actors because like I
Hmm.
didn't learn how to direct in film school. I mean, direct actors in film school. Like I knew how to block, I knew what a lens is. But when you're working with actors, like at least for me, there's like this stress that I have to talk to them the right way. Like I can't just be like, oh, can you just do that again? And they would have to like know what's their motivation and what's all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, it's in the script, dude. Like with non-actors, it's just so much easier to talk to them. Like, because like I'm more of a coach than like a director sometimes with actors, where I just want to get them to the best positions, and I know what the best positions are. But when they're asking me like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do that? And then I really gotta kind of get out of myself and really analyze why I think that's the right decision. Where I think I'm best as a director when I'm going off of instincts, if that makes sense.
So I want to talk about directing and like I guess your style and all that. It's not very often I talk to a filmmaker who is very open about their craft and their approach and their voice, and I really want to get into that. Like that could even be the bulk of this episode if you want. But I did want to ask you, just while we're on the subject of movies that came out last year, a film that, you know, I don't care about making lists. I did think that, just to kind of compare and contrast, I really liked Avengers Infinity War quite a bit. I thought it was, no pun intended, I thought it was marvelous. I thought it was a sight to behold. I really felt like I was watching something special in terms of its effects. Like I really bought into the aliens and all the special effects and all that stuff. So I really feel like there was like a crowning achievement of last year. But upon giving it more thought, I thought, did you see what's his name? Boots Riley's, what's it called? Sorry to Bother You. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
I thought, like, when I think about it, that's the best movie of the year for me. It bites. It has venom. Like, it's angry. It has balls. Like, it's made with a vengeance, you know, like it has something to say, and it has no regard whether you're on board with it or not, whether if you're in on it or not. It is, and I think it's kind of patronizing almost to like its audience. Like if you either can get this on a subtextual level or on a literal level, and if you don't, I don't care. And I miss that kind of that brave filmmaking that just says fuck you to its audience. Like I feel like we need that today. And it's like, man, Spike Lee used to be that guy to an extent. And I'm not saying he doesn't have it anymore or anything, but this was a movie that Spike Lee kind of should have made. But I'm very grateful for Boots Riley, considering it's his first film and his first foray into movies, by and large. I thought that movie was incredible, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit with you.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Spike because I saw both Sorry to Bother You and Black Klansman, and I love Spike. If as you're aware, he's probably my favorite director. Maybe like I don't know. I would have to really think about it, but he's up there. And Black Klansman was somewhat of a disappointment, and it was so beautiful to watch. And to quote Dave, the cinematography was perfect, but something was missing in that film for me, and I think it was the lack of bite that I get with every other Spike film. Like Spike is probably the most angry filmmaker.
Right.
And he shows it. And with Black Klansman, he kind of is like, oh, here's this thing, and here's the anti-Trump message, and here's all these other things I want to kind of get out there. But with Sorry to Bother You, like Booch just kind of like hits you with the haymaker, and if you're ready for it, like good for you. But if you're not, it takes you aback because so many filmmakers don't want to come out that way anymore.
That's right.
And if you're going to make a really political film, like you got to go out that way. Like you can't dip your foot into it and be like, well, I don't know. So I really admired Sorry to Bother You because not only was it like a political film, it wasn't obvious, I guess. Like, I mean, it was obvious, but it wasn't trying to be Vice. No offense to Vice, but it was just like interesting. It was somewhat surreal. The colors were popping, and yeah, I thought Sorry to Bother You was a real interesting film, and and it was probably one of the few films that I've seen recently where I was kind of shocked at some of the random things they were doing.
Yeah, it was upsetting and very insightful, and to me, I kind of felt like I think one of the best films of the decade that we're going to be talking about for a long time was Jordan Peele's Get Out. And I know a lot of people who didn't really get it when it came out who took the genre a little too seriously, and they're like, well, it wasn't scary in the traditional horror sense, or like, yeah, no, it was really funny, as if it was like a comedy first, and it's both those things certainly, but they didn't understand kind of like the Trojan horse that Jordan was really trying to get across. That was like this subtle racism that stems from the left, and I think he would know, and I really appreciated that perspective, and I appreciated that form of racism, like this ignorant yuppie racism, which I really appreciate, because by and large, when you watch Black American films and they're depicting racism, like it takes place in the South, and it's like the redneck, and it's like Deliverance style, and it was nice to see like the Upper East Side racism, and that kind of like white family that would have voted for Obama a third term if they could, and I feel like Boots kind of raised the stakes with Sorry to Bother You, and took that and said, yeah, that's there, but it's deeper than that, and the movie's unpredictable, and I appreciate that, and it goes off the rails, and narratively it's doing its own thing, and it also felt like a movie that would have been made in the early 2000s. Like, it was like this lunatic fringe movie. I don't know how it got made, and it has great big stars in it, like Terry Crews and and what's his Army Hammer and guys like this.
Yeah, Lone Ranger.
Right, most notably from the Lone Ranger, and and it just gut punched me, man. Like, it came out of nowhere, and kind of like Get Out, it showed me like this black experience, and it went so deep, like talking about like eugenics and things like that I didn't see coming. And the more I think about it, and I've only seen it once, I'm like, that's the bravest script of last year. It's the most daring original movie last year, and it ends with a fuck you, and I appreciated that, and I miss that in movies. And Boots, I'm not sure if I want to give him the 10-year credit that I'll give like Steve McQueen when I saw Hunger for the first time. I was like, cool, man, like I'm gonna watch I'm dedicated to you for the next 10 years. Like, you bought that credit for me. I don't know if I want to give Boots that just yet, but I'm definitely watching his next movie, and he's a guy to pay attention to, and I hope his next one is just as vicious.
Yeah, I think I would even go a step ahead of you. Like, something about Sorry to Bother You is very reminiscent of like 70s films, in the sense that it doesn't feel like it's made for anybody in particular, and that's what's kind of beautiful about it. And I don't know, like there was like an exploitation part of the film that's it's kind of bizarre, and I don't know. I kind of want to just go into spoiler talk. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'm sorry, but
yeah, skip 5 minutes ahead, because I think we should spoil it.
Yeah, yeah.
Equisapiens.
The whole concept, yeah, annotations, yeah. The whole horse people scene was kind of the most wicked thing I've seen in the theater, when the horse is just like begging him to like kill him, and I just feel like no other film had a scene like that. I remember in the theater, I was just like, whoa, what the heck? I think I saw the Alamo Draft House, and I probably had like a White Russian in my hand or something. I was just like, what the hell is going on?
I wish I could have watched it in theater. I saw it at home, and I literally had to pause the movie and rewind it. And I think me and Claire took a break, and we talked about what this meant for 10 minutes, and then we resumed the movie. But I love how that Equisapien is voiced by Forrest Whitaker, and he's saying, "We're hurting, help us, we're hurting." Oh God, that punched me into another hemisphere, man.
Yeah, and Army Hammer is so good in that film too. Like, like his constant drug use, and then he's like, "You gotta have a horse cocktail. That's gonna be the best part." And I don't know. There was so many like little subtleties in that whole film about class and wealth inequality that I thought was really, really cool to see in a mainstream film like that. And it wasn't punching down. So I said I hadn't seen Vice. I guess that's somewhat of a lie. I saw the first like 10 minutes of Vice, and I just kind of got disinterested. And the reason why I hate when most like liberals, quotation marks, make a Hollywood film is they seem to be punching down too much. Like in Vice, there's a scene where like the narrator's like, well, most Americans are too stupid to understand what George W. Bush was going to really do. So here's the thing, and that's just like, okay, like I guess that's cool, but you want to pretend you're for the people, and you want to pretend you're all these things, but you don't like people, and I can tell that with your films. and and what's sorry to bother you, like I never got a second that Boots Riley hates people. He just kind of is frustrated by how the system's set up, and I think that's a way more interesting thing to challenge than to question people's intelligence. At least that's how I see it.
True, and I think both are trying to do like similar things. Like they're both. I haven't seen Vice, but I assume like just like Sorry to Bother You, it's a cautionary tale saying that here's the way it's been in the past, and here's where we're going if we don't do something about it right now.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I would assume so too. Like I said, I didn't finish it because I thought there's things I couldn't get into. Even though I thought Christian Bale was kind of good in the film.
I bet one movie that I appreciated last year, and I kind of went, people I think just forgot it or maybe didn't appreciate it, but it was an HBO thing. I saw it's like a 5-hour thing of what was it called? The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling, which I really appreciated. It's really good, man. I know you're a big Judd Apatow fan, so you should check it out when you get the chance. I thought it was very interesting, and it also highlights this era in comedy, and it's very special, man. I think you should check it out. I think you'd dig it the most.
Yeah, I probably would love it. And you know me, I'm a big Judd fan. I consider him like kind of the modern day John Cassavetes in a weird way.
Wow, I wouldn't go that far.
Oh no, I mean maybe not in terms of like acclaim or I just think there's something really personal about Judd's films, maybe specifically like 3 of them, but I just don't really see in comedies like who else in comedy could make something like This Is 40 or Funny People and just be that vulnerable in a film about with Adam Sandler in it or something. I don't know, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
He's interesting. Like I do keep going back to his movies. I listen to the audio commentary of Funny People quite a bit, just because I like how inside baseball comedy really is. It's actually pretty well protected, as far as like it's in terms of like the how and the psychology. Like really, the greats, they don't go on podcasts and drop all the secrets. But I feel like there's tremendous like human value in comedy, and Judd's one of the guys that is transparent about that, and he explains why things work, and he's such a student of the game, and I appreciate him for that for sure.
It's funny you mention that because I'm not sure if your audience is aware, but me and Knives are somewhat big wrestling fans, or at least were, and wrestling is the exact opposite, where they want you to know every little detail. But you're kind of correct in the sense that comedy is very protected by performers, because they know if they let people in too much, then the magic would kind of be gone. It's kind of like being a magician in some ways. And wrestling, I think wrestling just wants legitimacy so much that they just spoil everything for you. Like they want to tell you how they fall, how they work a match, how they audible, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that wrestling, at least in America, is very giving in its information. It didn't always used to be. I think this is like an internet thing. It's changed, especially in the past 10 years. But I wish comedy was a little more giving. Like I wish Bill Murray was more transparent in a lot of ways. Like, and kind of like the jig is up and just would let information go. This stuff deserves to be open source, but I understand why it's protected. But comedians need to understand that, like Seinfeld, if he just dropped all of his gems, like, well, it's not like everybody can pick them up and then copy him. Like, not everybody can be Jerry Seinfeld or Steve Martin. Like, it's not going to happen. But it's the same thing with wrestling. Like, drop all the information that you want, because not everybody's can do that. Not everybody's going to do that. And I still appreciate wrestling. I'm not super informed with it. I don't know what's going on. But I love to just drop in, and I'll watch an NXT takeover every time, and I love just dropping in and appreciating it, because I just love the presentation. Like that's what it's about. Like how they put stories together will always interest me.
Yeah, no, I really feel that way. And there was a second wave of wrestling fandom for me, and it was when I was making guys like us, and I just kind of got back into it because Daniel Bryan was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up, and seeing him in the WWE on that big stage was kind of amazing. And when he got injured, you know, I just kind of stopped, and not because wrestling was bad, but just because there's something really boring about wrestling. and, and it and occasionally you get a match like AJ Styles versus John Cena in SummerSlam, but most of the times you get like, I don't know, Dean Ambrose versus uh I don't know, any generic wrestler, Sheamus, and I think both those performers are great, but it, but you watch wrestling for like the holy crap matches, at least I do. So like the week to week matches never interest me as much as like, the big one offs like Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels in WrestleMania 23, I want to say. But
2021.
was it 21? Dang, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It is 21. Man, I'm off with my numbers, but yeah.
Well, now they don't even number them, but yeah, I can already hear my listeners just being like, okay, I'm not going to listen to this after we talk about wrestling. I love it. I like talking about not necessarily the storylines because I'm not invested in them, but I like the fact that these dudes are no, they're actors. It's acting. It's just acting. But
Yeah,
people, I think audience brings the baggage in. I think the audience brings the baggage of like the legitimacy, not the wrestlers. It's the wrestler's job to make it appear legitimate, but that's part of acting. It's just like Tom Cruise when he cries or he gets smashed into a wall. Like it's his job to make that as real as possible. And I always want to shine light on the technicality that goes into wrestling because I don't care about the storylines and I don't care about the winners and losers. Like it's not about that. It's live theater. It's
yeah,
that's all it is, and I feel like that gets forgotten in a mainstream sense. People think that it's it doesn't it's not confusing or surprising that Dwayne the Rock Johnson would segue into acting, or Batista or John Cena would segue into acting. Like it's not surprising in the least bit. Like that's what they were doing. If anything, I think wrestling was more demanding than what they're doing now. Because now they
oh
have days to spend on one scene, whereas I mean they're telling entire blocks of stories a day, a week, a month, a year. It's just so demanding to live in character and then to go to the airport and still be expected to be in that character and people slash your tires and all that kind of Jake the Snake stuff. Like it's really fascinating. It's method acting in a lot of ways. The best of it is, and I like to shed insight on that, and maybe this will segue us to guys like us, but doing everything, a wrestling match is all done in one take at the
yeah,
same time,
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
hurting each other and you have each other's lives in your hands, and you made a movie called Guys Like Us that was a peek behind that curtain. Tell me about
Yeah.
where that came from, the idea, the germ, and how, the whole process.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna tell the whole story. So I just dropped out of film school because I try to recontextualize it, but I think I was nervous about going into my last year because I didn't feel like I learned much in film school, and I was like gonna work my quote unquote final, and there was just something, I guess, like scary about that for me for whatever reason. So I just dropped out, and and I wrote these like scripts about like why I hated film school, and none of them were very interesting. And so I kind of took a backseat and I started watching TV and films, and I remember you and Dave were just like, you gotta watch Lost, and I was like, I don't know, some sci-fi
Hmm.
shit, get out of here.
Hmm.
And I watched Lost, and I just thought it was really interesting how that TV show would just go for it in a way I hadn't seen in movies. Like back in those days, like even now, like I feel so many movies lack bite. We were just talking about that. So when I watched something like Lost, I just saw like this creative freedom that I didn't know existed. As silly as that sounds.
Hmm.
So I was just like, you know what, I gotta write something like that. so I thought of like writing this like whole big wrestling epic, and and I just started plotting it and outlining it, and I thought like this is like a legit story right here. Like this is amazing. I was so excited. I remember I called Andrew, who was living in Westlaco at the time, and I was like, Andrew, like you got to come back to Austin. I'm begging you, and you got to shoot my movie. And I told Andrew the idea, and Andrew was just like, yeah, Andrew has always been a gamer. That's kind of why I love him. So he was just like, yeah, let's do it, dude. He moved to Austin like I think 2 weeks later, and we just kind of got into it. We made Guys Like Us, and it was just something I felt like I was kind of talking to myself within that film, and I was talking about my own insecurities of like moving on from film, like the main character is moving on from wrestling, and I wasn't really aware of that at the time, which is really funny. Like I can't actually think about that stuff when I'm writing the script. Like I know me and you have like way different writing processes, but for me, I'm always thinking I'm writing outside of myself until I read it again, or if I watch it again, I'm like, oh, that's obviously about that.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to trust the writing and the characters and what they're doing, the relationships, and trust that the subtext is there.
Yeah, and the reason why I think I chose backyard wrestling was because I knew you, and then I went to school with this guy who was like a huge backyard wrestling star, and I just called him up and I was like, hey, you remember me from film school? It's JR, and he was like, oh yeah, dude, what's up? And I told him the idea, and he just loved it right away. And I remember I wanted to cast all his friends, and he's like, well, I don't know if any of them are gonna do it. And I was like, okay, so I think I asked you to be a part of it, but you were also kind of
making a movie.
Hmm?
I was making a movie as well.
Yeah, you were making a movie, and that was actually kind of one of my favorite moments of that whole experience was just how excited we both were about our films, because we would talk on Skype for like 3 to 4 hours, and we were just both hyping each other up for our movies, and we weren't even like telling each other like plot points. Like it wasn't even like that. We would just be like yo, dude, this movie, oh man, this movie's gonna. It was just such an exciting moment in our lives, and it's funny that we both did our movie like around the same time, and I felt like I did my movie fast, but you did your movie like in a couple of weeks. And I remember you asked me to do a teaser for your premiere, and I was like, man, nice. I only like shot like like 5 days of scenes, and yeah, it was just, we both had like way different ways of actually making the film, because I only was able to do weekends like twice a week, and I think you shot yours like back to back days, right?
Yeah, something like that. I shot about 85% of it in 5 days.
Yeah, so it was just different. But as far as like the actual shooting of it, and I remember when I was making it, I kind of wanted to make something true to wrestling, and I would keep asking Alex like, hey, is this like how it would actually be done, and is this how it is, and he would give me like nothing but positive feedback, so I felt like I did something right. And his friends, who I thought were gonna say no, all loved the script, except for one guy who turned it down, but that's all right. and and I was shooting a scene that was an actual wrestling match, and Andrew wanted to cut and do all these different things. I was like, no, let's just shoot it like if it's like TV or something, because I think that way we can play around more with the camera. Like we have to actually get the shots in camera, and
also I assume it's easier for the performers as well.
Yeah, that's my thing, and that's where I think directing non-actors come from. Even though I think wrestlers are pretty amazing actors, is that I don't want them to like worry about stopping the match and get back into blocking, or like, hey, let's do that from a close-up. And I wanted Andrew to feel free, like when he was shooting it. So I was like, Andrew, just like zoom in all you want, do these things that you got to do to get the emotions of the face. Because I remember Guys Like Us, I was really interested in the face. Like if you watch that film, like everything's a close-up. And so we shot like a 5-minute wrestling match, I think, all in one take. The audience was really hyped, and that was another thing. I didn't want the audience to not be hyped, so I just wanted to go for it. And one of the moments like shocked me because I wasn't really expecting it. And there was this moment where one of the wrestlers like has his face behind like a glass, like what are those light bulbs called? I don't know what they're called, like
light tubes.
Fluorescent lights, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the guy like stomps on his face, and the dude starts bleeding. And I was like, "Holy crap!
yeah,
Like, why did they tell me they were gonna do that?" And
yeah.
and that was the finish to the match. And the match ends, and I go up to the actor, and I'm like, hey, "Dude, you're all right." He's like, "Dude, I do this like every couple of weeks." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good." And we go on to the next scene, but I look at my actress who wasn't a wrestler. She was just someone I found on like the Austin casting website,
Hmm.
and she tells me, she's like, "Man, they're actually doing this stuff." I was like, "Yeah, that's wrestling for you."
It's super fun to watch in person because you're in the space with them, and every golpe, I don't know how you say it in English, but every like boom where it's just meat hitting the ground or meat hitting steel, like you feel it too, and you cannot help but say, wow, they're doing this for the sake of art. I really have to put you over, and I always do when it comes to guys like us. And this isn't a knock on you by any stretch. I just think it's true. But I think guys like us will be the greatest film you ever make. I think when you look back, like it's all there. Like I'm personally very proud of it. Like it's a movie. There are a few movies that filmmakers make, whether if they're my buddies or there's people I've never met, who like completely handled that subject very well. Like now I don't have to write that thesis because they did it. Guys Like Us is one of those. And for the listeners, go to Vimeo, type in Guys Like Us. It's one of the first things that pop up. And I just love that you could have like a lesser director, a less compassionate director, a less empathetic and humanist director would have made fun of these characters, would have poked fun at them and kind of disgraced them and humiliated them for being maybe immature or something like that. But I felt like you were one of the guys. Like when you're watching the movie, you're one of the guys, and that's a camaraderie aspect that like is the whole purpose of the movie for me. For me, obviously, I'm projecting my own shit onto it, but I love the ending of your film, and I don't want to give it away, but good luck topping that. Good luck topping the last 10 minutes of your, or maybe 5 minutes of your movie. Because that's what it's all about. Like that's a snapshot in time. That's a moment in time that will live on forever. And I miss that. Like I miss that camaraderie. I miss doing dumb shit with buddies and going back and watching it back. And I thought you captured it very, very well, man. And an underrated performance is a mutual friend, Christian Blake, who, now that I think about it, I have to have on the show.
Oh
He's
yeah, for
tremendous.
sure.
And I still talk to him from time to time, but he's a great guy. And, he had a powerhouse performance, something I didn't expect. I was like, how did JR get this guy? How did he do this? I couldn't. Christian would never act in my movie,
Yeah.
so I just thought it was so cool. And like, how old were you when you made Guys Like Us?
Shoot, man, I must have been 20, maybe.
Do you ever
Yeah,
look
20.
back and say, like, where did I have that confidence or audacity or ignorance or whatever it was? Like, where did you have the audacity to think that you could pull that off? Because making a movie is a miracle.
Yeah, and I think about that often nowadays because it seems so hard to make a movie. Like even if it's just like, even if I'm like a little bit step away from it, like I'm trying to produce Andrew's new film, and it's just different. Like when I was young, I think I was so afraid of not making a film that making something that didn't work was easier for me, if that makes sense. So when I started doing Guys Like Us, I told Andrew, I was like, the date is March 18th. I don't know if that's the actual date, but it was like March 18th, we're starting it, like no matter what. And Andrew's like, well, but we don't got this, we don't got this. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's all right, man. We don't need a cameraman. We got you, we got me. And we have this weird guy on Craigslist that we found. Like that's all we need to do this film. and, and then we go ahead and we start making it. And the first day, I wish I could say the first day was perfect, but the first day was actually the worst day on set. We did 30 takes of the scene that got cut out of the film, and we just kept going and going. And that's when I was like, dread never came into my mind, but if it did, it would have been that day. But I think I was so convinced that the movie had to be made that I wasn't really considering like the option of failure. I was just like, okay, something's not working about this scene, but I'm gonna keep going until it's right. And we finally got the take, I guess, but we like I said, it never really worked. And I think we only shot like 3 scenes, and I think the last scene that we shot was was oddly the scene when Alex or Devin the kid and Dirty Floyd got into the big argument. And when I saw that scene like in person, I was like, whoa, that's like what I wrote. And after that, I felt like the film had like no way of failing. Like if you see the
I know
movie,
what you
I
mean.
think that's one of the more effective.
Once you get like a big scene like that where you kind of feel like you can sell it, not literally sell it, but it's now the alibi for the movie. Like once you have one of those scenes in the can, it's very encouraging.
Yeah. So when that scene happened, I just remember thinking like, oh dang, this movie's like done. Like it was like we still ended up needing like 10 more days, but I was like, it's ready. Like I got it. And me and Andrew put the film on Final Cut Pro and we were watching it and we were both just like, yo, we did it. And the next day we were just so excited to go and every day got easier. Like the only thing I wish I could do something different with guys like us is I wish I could have had the confidence that I had in the final day of shooting towards the beginning, because
Uh huh.
you learn on the job when you're
Yeah.
directing. Like that's why rehearsal is so great for most directors, but micro budget, zero budget films don't have that opportunity most times. So you kind of just have to like learn where the film is like as you're shooting it. You got to learn who the characters are as you're shooting it, and that's what's
100%, man.
interesting. And something I really enjoyed about guys like us and a lot of my films, because most of my films don't end up the way it's written, is that you learn about the film as you're making it, and that's when you can kind of make adjustments. And that last scene you're talking about, that only happened because we thought for the longest time we weren't going to get a ring for the big finale I wrote.
Hmm.
And so I wrote this like beautiful monologue for Alex to deliver.
Hmm.
And Alex gives it with such a great performance that I was just like, wow, that's
The
great.
epilogue, I'll say, because I don't want to give it away for some people that I think will enjoy it. But the epilogue of the movie, to me, is the movie.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
It's the
why,
movie, and the characters. There's a blissful ignorance. Like I don't think they knew. I'm curious. Like, do you know if that crew still hangs out and like if they still are assembled,
uh, not
or
to get
have
too
they
somber, but
scattered
one of
along
the
with the time?
yeah, well, so they still hang out somewhat, like at least most of them, I think. Not as much as they did when they were obviously wrestling together. But one of the actors in that film actually passed away kind of tragically, and
Who?
and oh, he was the guy in the film that goes through the big accident, which is kind of bizarre for me
Re-
sometimes when I think about it. And
really? Oh my gosh! I can't believe that.
yeah, and when I heard about it, I was just like, whoa, like I just kind of numbed to me because I saw guys like us right afterwards, and I was just like, man, I
Wow.
don't know. It was just so like he's not part of that crew anymore, unfortunately. But they were wrestling. Last I checked, like every once in a while, or like every summer, I think they do like a big event. But
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It seems like obviously Alex and his little brother still hang out because they're related, and I think the actor who plays Dirty Floyd is still with them. But I'm not too sure if the other characters in the film hang out as much with those core three guys. But
If
yeah, they're
if I went out and set out to make a movie that's about chasing glory, and then the characters realize that they didn't need to chase it, like being with each other is glorious. If I set out to make that movie, like I don't know if I could have pulled it off, especially at age 20. And so I really appreciate guys like us. I always go back to it, and the more I go back to it, the more I'm like, oh, JR is ripping this guy off. JR is doing this. This is an homage to that. I'm like, wow, like those were his influences at the time. Like I can recall a few. What
yeah.
as far as like your visual style and maybe even your writing style, like what influenced you at the time?
So I kind of have a two-part answer for this because when I was making it, I think my biggest influence was obviously Rocky. I think Rocky's forever my biggest influence. When I was writing the script, I was really thinking about Rocky. And another thing I was thinking of was Edgar Wright
Yeah,
did
I
this
see that.
like
I know that with the cornetto sequence or a little the shot.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Edgar Wright does this like really interesting YouTube series where he talks about story structure. I'm not even sure if it's a series, it might just be one video where it's
Hmm.
him and Simon Pegg talking about how to not book a movie, but how to outline a movie. And I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna hit these beats because I am tired of trying to be quote unquote original. And it's
Hmm.
funny because when you work inside of a system, I think that's where you can find your voice. And if you try to work outside of that system, I think sometimes if you're unprepared, it kind of messes you up. Not everyone is Tarantino, as they say. so, so I think Edgar Wright just kind of gave me the confidence to like work within a structure and finding my voice in that way. So in the writing process, it was Stallone and Edgar Wright that kind of influenced me. But when I was directing, I think my influences at the time were just like these dark comedies, like Jody Hill's Observe and Report, and what else was there? Oh, the movie The Comedy was a big influence for me. But
Yeah.
towards the end of the film, I became a big fan of Jonathan Demme, and Melvin and Howard is still one of my favorite movies that I've seen. And I saw the film, and I was just like, you know what? There's like a weird compassion about Melvin and Howard that I really enjoyed, and I think that's what I come for the movies for. Like I come to watch these humans that don't often get the spotlight on them, and
Yeah.
and that's where my biggest influence comes from. Is I think Jonathan Demme, the way he's kind of can be so humanizing to people that often aren't given that opportunity. So I would say it's probably like a mix of like Demi and dark comedies and and Stallone, but I don't know. What influences did you see when you watched the film, if you don't mind me asking?
Definitely Edgar Wright, um, Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, those are like the two big ones for sure. Um, and I would almost say, I feel like Judd Apatow gets the credit for a lot of those movies from that era, but not he doesn't deserve all the credit. Like something like a Superbad, he didn't really have anything to do with. I know he like EP'd it, but that's Greg Matola's movie. You know what I mean? But I definitely got movies from that era. Like you were you were you were young enough that you could tap into that and it was relative. You know what I mean? Like if you tried to tap into that now, you would run the chance of it not really being cool because you're older now. You know what I mean? But it was still cool because like you were one of the guys, and it's such a beautiful portrait in time, man. Like I really love that movie, and I always recommend it to people because it's almost like a mumblecore movie. It's very Swanberg's another one. I saw those influences anyways, and
Yeah,
it's it's a perfect example of like, look, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be honest. Like that's the movie. Like the
yeah,
textures and the vibes and the feelings that you get from it is what you're going to take away. And I think a lot of filmmakers today, or aspiring filmmakers, should I say, don't have the guts to be fearless. Don't have the guts to be vulnerable and say, "This isn't perfect," and this I might not pull this off, but I'm going to risk it anyways. But that's where the magic is. And if you complete that, that is like that's worth your time. You know what I mean? Like it's really beautiful. And I know you said that there's a lot of close-ups in the movie, and I can think of a few that like stand out in my head. But it's really the wide shots. It's really the wide shots that I was like, and maybe it's you or Andrew, but at the end of the day, it's you're the director. But the wide shots to me were very brave. Like I was like, Jr. felt very confident, like to let this scene play out.
yeah,
And that's something that most, like I said, a lesser filmmaker obsessed with, gear, I think would have been like, oh, I want this to be very shallow and very close. And like, and that to me is like a very amateur 2009, 10, 11, 12 YouTube, like just got a DSLR habit. And you didn't have that. Like there was a lot of wide shots. Like most of the film to me, like I said, a lot of close-ups don't really stand out to me, other than like a few notable ones. But most of it was kind of wide. Like most of it is everybody in the shot, like their entire bodies, and
yeah,
that to me was like that stood out to me. And I was like, wow, like Jr. is really confident. Like he's chewing the scenery. Like he trusts the scenery, and that's there's so much confidence in that, and good luck topping it. Like I feel like in a way you'll be chasing this movie for a while, and that's a good problem to have. But yeah, just for the listeners, man, I wanted to talk about your directing and your style and for a little bit. And so please check it out. I'll definitely link it in the podcast notes for sure. I think it's worth checking out, whether if you like wrestling or not.
Yeah, and yeah, like Knife said, look it up on Vimeo, guys like us. But going back to Christian Blake real quick, and it's funny you mentioned getting him to act in the film, because I was kind of nervous to ask him, because I was going to Westlaco and I was like, I don't know any actors, so I'm just gonna ask Christian, and he also has this equipment, so at least I can get that. And he was like, well, yeah, Jared, I think you're a cool guy. Like, I'll do it. And so I sent him the script, and then he calls me back, and he's like, and he was just concerned about the language. And I was like, Christian, listen, no one's gonna see this movie. Like, don't worry about it. And he comes in, and I was kind of nervous that he would be like a little tiptoeing, but he like goes more vulgar than what's in the script. And I just remembered my friend Jesse, who I got to act, was just like, wait a minute, we can do that. And they both just try to like top each other, and it was one of my favorite like moments where I was just like, man, you have like two actors that just won't quit. And it had me like dying when I was shooting like a specific scene. But no, I always want to work with Christian again as an actor, because there's something really interesting about his voice, as you're probably aware because you talked to him a bunch. But yeah, so just going there for like 1 second. I just wanted to give Christian like a little shout out for being.
He's really special too, and he considers himself an actor first. You know, so I've never had the pleasure in directing him as an actor, and I don't know if I could. I don't know if he'd fit in my universe, so to speak, because he has like this might to him. But he's tremendous. He's definitely one of the standouts of that movie for sure. And so I'm gonna have him on the show one day, and we'll try not to just make it all about Marvel and DC comics and stuff, but
that might be.
But definitely,
that might be a little tough with them.
I want to say like I was in production, you were in production, and I want to say Christian started production that year as well, right?
Yeah, we were the three-headed monster: Ingress, Seven Hands, and Guys Like Us.
Yeah, it's crazy. That was like
first. Mine came out second.
Yeah, but I mean, as long as they came out, like now they're all. Oh, I was gonna say they're all available. They're not all available, but at least Ingress and Guys Like Us are available. So my point is like we completed them, you know. So
yeah,
that's a good feeling.
And that's so tough to imagine, because so many films don't get made, but all three of us got our films made, even varying degrees of completion time. But that's always that kind of cool moment.
You know, I want to talk about what you got going on in the future in the next 3 years. I know it's kind of hard, but I just want to know like where you're at writing wise. And I really love my buddies that are making movies. I'm so proud of everybody. I'm your biggest fan. Like I'm my friend Mark Hernandez's biggest fan. I'm Christian Blake's biggest fan. Like we all virtually came up together. We came from the same hood by and large. And so when one of us makes it and makes a movie and completes a project, like all I want to do is support that and shine light on that, man. So what do you got working on for the next couple of years, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I've gotten more into like the producer side of things, because whether it's just lack of ideas or lack of like a script I can believe in, I just haven't gotten anything that I really feel the itch to direct. And for me, a lot of it is just more just kind of being out there. I think I wrote this script a couple of years back that I wanted to produce with Rue, called No Way Jose, which I thought might have been the best script I had written at that time, and maybe even still now. I really thought the script was really, it hit everything I wanted to hit in terms of just emotion, and it was a romantic film, and it was just it was a little bizarre, and the production fell apart like one day before shooting, thankfully, because I think I casted the wrong actor, and I think I was pressured by a couple of my producers to go in a direction I'm not too sure if I wanted to go into. So after that, I haven't just like, and whether it's just because I'm afraid of just like finding locations again, because making a film
is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, a lot of it is tough. and going back to when I made Guys Like Us, I think I was aware of how tough it was, but being in a small town, I think it's easier to make a film in a small town, because there's less chance, you know, like if that that makes sense. Like there's less things to shoot in a way where there's more things to shoot. So like, and Guys Like Us, there's this one beautiful church I knew I wanted to shoot at, or there was this one.
Well, you're more familiar with your locations for sure.
Yeah, and in New York City and Austin, I always thought it was way too much almost. But I really want to direct something in New York, like, and I never got that in Austin, unfortunately. I never got the itch that Austin was where I wanted to shoot movies, and if I was kind of gonna have Austin play a different city, but New York, I kind of love the city. I wrote the script here about this like really successful person in Manhattan, and it was kind of an interesting script, but I just kind of never gave it like the proper rewrite. But I've been writing. I just haven't. I don't know what it is. There's like me and my bud always talk about like what motivates us to direct, and in a funny way, what motivates us to direct is directing movies, because when you're directing a movie, that's all you wanted to do. Like I think if I was smart, I would have told Jer after he did Guys Like Us, like, hey, just do another one right away. Because when I finished Guys Like Us, I finished 2 scripts. I was ready. I was just like, let's go. and the further you get away from it, the more you kind of worry about stuff, or I've had a couple, I don't want to say failures, but some things just didn't go my way within the last few years, with like the last couple of things I've did. And I don't know, like I guess I still got this fire to direct, but I think I kind of want to step away and do something a little bit smaller, like maybe do a short film or something in that vein, because just doing these huge projects have taken a toll on me. Like, so the last big thing I did was Fat Actor, which never got released.
That was a while ago.
That was a while ago. Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple of short films since then. I did a little horror film, and I did a little family comedy thing with Joe and George Ayala, the two goats. But besides that, besides stuff I've done with my family and friends, I haven't done anything with actors since Fat Actor, and I think it's because of
Do you think it's because you're complacent because you made a masterpiece and you're like, well, I don't really have anything to prove? I'm serious.
I know you're serious. And one of the last times we talked, you had asked me if I thought I could write something better than Guys Like Us, and I think I could.
Well, but apparently, I bring that up a lot. I didn't realize. I thought I was saying that for the first time right now.
No.
Sorry.
You brought it up as soon as you were done watching it. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Probably. Yeah. Okay. It's true though.
No, but it is an interesting question, because so I've done like 2 huge projects that I'm somewhat proud of, and one was Cracked, which I did in high school, and then the other one was the Guys Like Us, when I did after dropping out of college. And I think Guys Like Us, at the time when I finished it, I thought, well, I'm glad I made it, but like I'm not too sure who's gonna like it. And I remember I sent it to you, I sent it to my buddy JC, and I sent it to Christian, and I was like, if one of these guys like it, then I'm good. And all 3 of you got back to me, and you all loved it. And I was like, well, do they really love it, or are they just being friends? But I know you guys actually liked it, because like years later you all still bring it up to me. Which is kind of,
well, as a friend, cool. It's my responsibility to tell you that it's shit, if it's shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I don't feel like a lot of people do that, and I've told people they made bad films, and I've lost some friendships that way, so I can understand why people are afraid of doing that, But yeah, no, I mean, so with Guys Like Us, I think I can top it, but it has to be the right circumstances, and I really got to get my footing down, which is why I'm excited to produce Fernie and Luca, which is Andrew's new thing, because in a way it's gonna kind of reintroduce me to like the pre-production stuff in filmmaking, which is probably my least favorite part of filmmaking. Like, I don't like casting, I don't like rehearsing, I don't like I don't like those like little details. I'm always more about the shooting and getting things kind of figured out on set. And actors don't like that, which kind of goes back to my point that like sometimes it's tough to work with professional actors because they like to know what they're doing like on set. so that way they don't waste any time, which I appreciate. But it just kind of like I never learned how to do that. Everything I've learned has always been more about like getting the blocking right and then figuring out the rest on set.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting,
it's just different. I think in some ways actors intimidate me. But
yeah, I mean, it's all about them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
One thing that's important to me that I had to learn the hard way and a very expensive way was I when I first started, I really cared about looking cool to my actors. I wanted them to be like, wow, I'm working with legendary filmmaker Knives Monroe. and then it slowly occurred, I mean, I was so young at the time, but it slowly occurred to me, like, I don't really give a fuck about what they think about me. Like, I'm here to make them look good, and they just got to do their thing. And whatever they need, like, it's really just less or more, like you said, with non-actors, like, you can kind of tell them to overdo it because they're not going to start with that by and large. And I think actors, like, I don't, rehearsal is huge, man, and like building rapport and like knowing what their strengths are. Like, I've learned enough where I'm a reverse engineer. You know what I mean? Like, I will write, like, I write for people's voices now, and I protect actors that way. Like, I'm not going to give them something to do that's above their pay grade. I've done that in the past, and it doesn't really work out. And at the end of the day, like, I'm accountable for it. So, like, don't, it's like wrestlers, man. Like, you're building a show. So what are you going to open with? You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to open with your main event. You're going to save your main event for last. And also, your main event might not be the best thing, but it's going to be the thing that's going to have the most eyeballs and attention and payoff and all that. So you're really structuring it that way. And you just got to know, like, whose people's strengths are. Like, as a booker, you know what I mean? Like, that's actors. Like, I've learned a lot working with them, and it's a lot easier for me when you don't give a shit about looking cool. And it's just about doing the thing. Let's do the thing, boom, knock it out, set up the next thing, boom, knock it out, set up the next thing, boom, knock it out. Like, that to me, I remember reading a book, maybe it was like a book of interviews of Clint Eastwood, and seeing his style. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had the same style. I'm not saying I'm the same caliber of filmmaker, but just I don't tell actors action. I just say whenever you're ready. And I want to do the scene once. I want to get it the first time. And if the actors feel like they didn't do it, I'll give them another one. But I just want to nail it the first time, like theater. Clint does the same thing. Like, I don't block. Like, I write the blocking in the script. I know you're not supposed to do that, but it's my script, so I do that. Just to make the day as seamless as possible, because I don't want to get there and figure anything out. Like, that's that's when you start to sweat. And like they say in wrestling, bringing that back, you never want them to see you sweat. So, and I think where you're at right now is, I just think you're cold. Like, it's like you haven't been in the gym in a year or two, and you're a little intimidated. But maybe you don't start off making a feature. Maybe you start off being a PA, and you start off like helping one of your friends produce a film, and then you start off maybe doing a short film, and then maybe a music video, and then you ease into a feature. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to run 14 miles your first day at the gym. But I'm a big fan of you, and I want to see what you're up to, and I want to watch you direct. Like, I love those behind the scenes photos of like Sean Penn watching Terrence Malick direct, and like, people that are wrapped on the thin red line. And is that what it's called? Thin red line? Yeah. People that, Woody Harrelson, like, everybody's wrapped, but they're watching him, and I just think that's so cool. And then later on they go and direct, like Clooney directs or whatever. And I love that. And that's me, man. Like, I learned a lot on Christian Blake sets. I learned a lot watching him direct on Ingress. I was like, oh, when he has downtime, he just shoots it. Like, he shoots it from all the angles, and he gets his coverage during downtime while he's trying to figure out his master. That taught me a lot. I was like, cool, there's no such thing as downtime. Always film. Always keep your actors warm and busy, and let them get their bad takes out of the way, and all that. And then when you got your masters, well, then go in close and make them shine bright. And I learned a lot from him, and he was a very giving guy as well. Like, he doesn't hold any secrets to himself. And yeah, man, like, I'm very inspired by my friends, and I wish the next thing that you do, I'd love to help in any way. I'd love to be there, even if it's in New York. It doesn't matter to me. But make something in New York while you can, man, because it's it's a cinematic town. Like, you walk around, and with the right music, like, you feel like you're in a movie, and you know that better than me. But go out there and do it, brother, because I love your work, and I think the best thing you've done is Guys Like Us. I still remember Cracked, and I've seen it maybe twice. But something, and I'd love to have this conversation with you and your brother Marcus. I like Marcus's short films. Like, he's really good at them. He may not identify as a filmmaker per se or as an actor per se, but he's really good at them. He has a knack for it. But Guys Like Us, which was like your first, you threw your hat in the ring, so to speak, your first thing. And it wasn't your first thing because you'd been like a fly on the wall on so many different productions and setups and all that. But I don't know if I ever asked you, like, what was Marcus's reaction when you showed it to him? When you showed a complete version that you were confident with, like, what was his reaction? Because here is his little brother, like, making something, and he had to have dug it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because when I finished an earlier cut of Guys Like Us, it wasn't very good. It was like 2.5 hours long. And I showed that cut to all the actors, and like none of them liked it. Like, besides Alex. Alex was the only one that maybe saw the forest and in the trees or whatever. And I go with Andrew. I'm like, Andrew, like, what's going on here? He's like, I don't know. And then we just keep editing it down, and we got it down to, there was a 90-minute cut, and I sent that one to my family and my cousins and all that stuff. And again, I don't think any of them liked it, and it was kind of bizarre for me, because I thought the film was really good, and I was kind of down on it for like a minute, and then I cut it down one more last time. I put it on Vimeo, and the reaction was positive. Like, people seemed to really dug it. I sent it to you all, and y'all seemed to really dug it, and my cousin called me, my cousin Renee, who's in the film, and he's like, hey, I just saw the film. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I really like this. And he kind of tells me what he dug about it. And I was like, okay, cool. But like, as far as Marcus goes, I think he kind of liked it. I'm not too sure if he was actually the biggest fan of it, to be honest.
Wow. That's interesting, because you guys have made like at least 10 short films that I've seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's more of just different like taste. Like, I think the
maybe he's too close to it, and he's too close to you, and so he sees all the strings.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Because so me and Marcus sort of co-directed Grown Ass Men. Like, he was like the obviously visionary guy of it, but if you watch Grown Ass Men, it's more like my camera style than his camera style, if that makes sense. So we did that movie together, and I'm a really big fan of that one. And all the recent stuff he's done, like, we've kind of done together, and I'm a big fan of his work. And it's probably yeah. So, but I'm not too sure if he liked Guys Like Us. I think he might have actually liked Crack better than Guys Like Us, if I'm being honest.
Interesting, man. Well, I look forward to your next thing, whenever and whatever it is. I'm gonna be there. Do you value the theater experience? Like, do you see yourself screening it, or do you see yourself digitally releasing it?
I think I'm mostly gonna probably stay in my lane of digital release. I might do a screening for something. The one regret I have, and I should have listened to you. Like, a lot of times I probably should have listened to you more, was I wish I did screen Guys Like Us in a theater, but I think I always let the nerves get the best of me. I'm just always like, I can't take any of this. Like one time a bunch of my friends were over, and Andrew puts on Guys Like Us, and I'm just like, oh no, I just gotta get out of here. Like, there's something I just can't watch with my movies sometimes, and I love my movies, which is funny. Like, I think they're pretty great, if I can say that about myself. But I don't know. I never got the. I think I just always get too nervous for whatever reason.
It is nerve-wracking, man. Like, the first time I screened a movie in theater, I was too busy to be nervous. I was thinking about the concession. I was thinking about the tickets, and I got there, and I was like, oh, I never even broke change. Went to the bank, broke change. Like, and I was just like figuring all these things out, seating people and making sure everybody was good, and making sure that the sound was good. And so finally, when it was like just about time to introduce the film, and I sat down, that's when the nerves hit me, and I was like, wait a fucking second. I just conned everybody to be here. I just stole everybody's money. Like, holy shit, they're going to judge this thing. They're actually going to watch it. Oh shit, they're going to fucking hate this. Oh man, what if I got myself into, like, these people aren't going to stay here. Certainly they're not going to stay here and watch the whole thing. Oh my God, they're going to see this one scene where I said this, like, and everything started hitting me. And I was like, I can't believe what have I done? Like, but by then it was too late. But I'm really happy that fright or that panic set in when like I was rolling the trailers. Like, it was already too late to go back. But but I trusted the material, man, because as soon as my opening title credits came on, I was like, oh, all these fuckers are watching a movie and they know it, and I just let it happen. And so it was, I suggest, that you do screen it, even if it's to like 40, 50 people or something, because the feedback you get, even as a test screening, the feedback you get that's where you learn. That's where you grow miles in experience and knowledge, is the feedback that you get from them. So just think about that, even if it's just a test screening, and if you want to survey them and all that and get their feedback. What scene didn't work? What character didn't work? Or, oh, you didn't know that these two were brothers. Well, maybe I should add an insert of blah, blah, blah. That stuff really does make the piece more refined. When I screened Herdop, it was a 2.5 hour cut. I can't believe I got away with that. And then finally, my cut that's on YouTube is an hour 55. So I cut 45 minutes of the movie. And I learned that from the screening, because I'm like, dude, there are sequences that just were just for me, and it's really about them, and you don't know that till you're in the energy of a crowd.
You're totally right, because one of the things I took away from my cast and crew screening of Guys Like Us was one of the actress girlfriend talks during the movie, and she kind of gets upset that one of the characters is talking really bad about the town. And I was just like, you know what? I don't think I need that scene. I think the message gets conveyed without being mean-spirited. And I didn't want Guys Like Us to be mean-spirited, as you're kind of aware when you're watching the film. So I kind of cut out all the mean-spirited stuff of the film, because, like, in a way, like, the film's about Weslaco, and I love Weslaco. So I can't have this resentment of this city I liked, and I love. So even though there's little things that I get bothered by Weslaco, I can kind of show that visually without having one of the characters wax poetically about how lonely a city is. You know what I mean? And I think I only would have gotten that through a test screening. So I actually do agree with you 1,000%. And I do gain everything from every test screening I do. So I probably should do more. Like, I showed my high school film to my whole classmates, and they were all turned off by this one experimental thing I did, and I cut it out before I released it on YouTube. And I mean, hopefully whatever I do next, I'm brave enough to do that. And going through the whole process of my buddy Graham's film, Shoot the Moon, like, we've done like a few test screenings, and it changes after every time. So I do think test screenings are extremely valuable, and I do think showing the film to people and having feedback and you see their face is really valuable. You don't get that through an online message board, unfortunately. So yeah, right. I think no matter what I do next, I'm gonna screen it. If not the theater, but a room full of people, just so I can get a vibe of what everyone's kind of thinking,
Wow, that's cool, man. And I think that's crucial for sure. Well, brother, was there anything else that you wanted to get at? I want, like, all wrestling style. I'm looking at the clock. We got like 2 minutes left in the match. Like, I don't know if you wanted to get some more shit in, but I love talking about filmmaking stuff. Like, it is such a I understand that it's pretentious, but, like, filmmakers are the new gatekeepers now. You know what I mean? Like, we got the power. It used to be, you had to go to Hollywood, you had to go to LA, you had to go here, you had to go to film school, you had to do this, you had to get the cosign, you had to blah blah blah. And now, like, I just feel so empowered when I look at all the businesses and small businesses and the entrepreneurs that are trying to get noticed. Like, at the end of the day, they needs to be documented. They need cameramen, they need people that know how to make a podcast, they need audio engineers, they need filmmakers to tell their stories. You know what I mean? So I feel really empowered in my career now more than ever. And so, I definitely want to spread that message. And anytime I can talk about filmmaking with another director, it's like, the filmmaker needs to be respected. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
on a high horse about it or anything, but the truth is, like, there's one 16-year-old that's going to hear this and be like, oh, I've never thought about that. Let me go Vimeo that. Let me watch it and be like, oh, wow, this counts? Oh, I can make a movie. And then they go out and they do it. You know, that was me when I saw Slacker. That was me
Yeah.
when I saw Kevin Smith's Clerks. I was like, this counts? Well, I could do that. You know, and I had the audacity to do it. I'm not saying I did, but all I
No,
want to do
no.
is just encourage the young bucks to go out there and take it, man, because it's theirs for the taking.
Yeah, and and I really want people to stress, like, if you're a young filmmaker and hearing this, like, watch Her Doppelganger or Guys Like Us, or both, because I think, I think I've told you this, but when I watched Her Doppelganger, I was just like, you know what? Like, he sold out a theater, and this is what the DSLR, which I was never a fan of the look of the DSLR, but there was something about Her Doppelganger that I really enjoyed it. And I was just like, I'm gonna shoot Guys Like Us with the whole DSLR and see how it works. Like, I would say like 70% of the film is that, and I probably wouldn't have done that if I didn't see Her Doppelganger. So I think there's something extremely valuable about watching no budget films
Hmm.
to kind of just see, like, you don't necessarily need the best sound equipment or video equipment to make a movie, as long as you got a couple of ideas and themes you really want to hit and actually want to hit. Like,
Hmm.
that's where the magic happens, and everything else is BS.
I agree, man. Well, next time you're in the middle of a project, I want to have you on again and we can talk about it and let me know what you want to do, man. Like, I know you said that Austin, it didn't really inspire you, or maybe I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it just didn't feel like the right place to set a movie. I understand that. One thing that I personally want to do that I have yet to do, and I think it's going to be very difficult, is selling out a theater in Austin.
Ooh.
I want to become a member of the Austin Film Society, and I want to get in. And I know they have a few theaters, whatever their biggest one is. I think it's under 400 seats. I could be wrong about that, but I want to sell it out, and I want to do a test screening back in the Valley, and to sell a theater out here, not for the numbers, but just for, like, wow, Austin people, like, how do you do that? Like, I want the challenge, and it's definitely something that I want to do, and if you ever need any help with doing that, I'm more than willing to help you out with that, because I just want to see you succeed, man.
Oh, for sure. And before I go, I'd be kidding myself. I didn't say I will be in Austin in mid-April, and I would love to see you in person if you have time.
I'll make the time, man. I'll be here in April, and so consider it done.
All right,
I'm
cool.
in. I love you, brother. Thanks for coming on the show, man. It means a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun, and don't be a stranger. So,
I
yeah,
won't
man.
enjoy glass.
Oh yeah, for sure. I gotta get ready for that in a couple of hours. But yeah, it was nice talking to you. Good luck whatever you're doing. Last I checked, you were working on something yourself. So,
Yes, sir.
I enjoy the podcast. I enjoy the videos. I find all your work
I
really
will.
inspiring and cool. So, it's great talking to you, and have a wonderful day, man.
Love you, brother. Take care, man.
All right, love you too. See ya.